Dr. Kevin Cranfield is going to be presenting Nearpod. You might have heard Heather say that when he interviewed, he used Nearpod in that interview and his presentation, and it was impressive. And so he is definitely the right man for this training. We are being videotaped, so we'll have access to this presentation, or for those who are not able to attend. And then Kevin's also talking about maybe doing like a podcast, potentially too, and I've got to find a repository for these things, so we'll figure that out. But I'm going to hush, and I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, and we're ready to learn, Kevin. Thanks.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks. I'm excited to have these things going on. So Nancy and you worked with a few others, but thank you guys for getting it going. I think it's a great idea. I'm looking forward to being on the other end in the future to a lot of these, because I like technology. That's one of the things that I'm hoping will come through this. Although I like technology, I'm also very skeptical of it. I've abandoned a lot of technology things. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to pitch this one up front and use it is because I've used this for about 4 years. And so while I drop a lot of technology because I think it ends up being distracting and inefficient, I've stuck with this one. And so of all of the different tools I kind of come across and I like them, I play with them, this is one that's been sticking around because it's extremely easy to use, not terribly time consuming, and I get useful stuff I can make meaning of right away. And so anyway, for me, it's been kind of one of the rare constants for technology integration. So anyway, Nearpod is an app. As we go throughout here, it's an app. It also runs off a web page. I'll show you a variety of those things and get you on devices so you're playing with them throughout the session. But also want to use this as a means to showcase kind of some of the stuff what it does. So you'll have clickers, you can do things. Well, with Nearpod, I can control the screen from my device right there. And so, so I flip that up there, no clicks or anything like that. So it's kind of a cool way where you can control that. All of you in a minute will log into the show, and your screens will change with mine too. So again, it's a really cool way to get everyone involved from that. And as we go throughout, we'll see how that can be helpful to enhancing your presentations, which is what I'm kind of pitching this as. So that said, I just thought we'd take not very long, but just kind of a welcome. I give kind of Cliff's Notes overview of what it is and how I've made sense of it there. But not everyone necessarily knows everyone in the room. Just real quickly, just kind of name where you're at, and maybe if you want to share why you came here or any experience you have with Nearpod, great. But I'll keep it easy. So example for me, Kevin Cranfield. Kevin works just fine. It's a long, goofy name, so Kevin works good. I'm right here in Ed Leadership, and again, I like technology, so I'm here because I'm leading, but I'm going to be over on that end a lot because I like learning too. So we'll go around this side of the room. If you just spin around, if you just quickly like that.
I'm Christina Cobb in the University Studies Department, and I just recently used a Nearpod lesson for my math class, so I just had a few questions on how to make it up better.
Awesome.
I'm Emma Higgs from University Studies, and we've done a little bit with Nearpod at conferences. I'm looking to expand my use of it.
I'm Nancy Calkin in Ed Leadership, and I have not used Nearpod yet, and so I'm looking forward to learning and implementing it ASAP.
Robin Ridgely, I'm an elementary and special ed. I've been a participant in sessions that have used Nearpod, but I haven't used it myself.
Cheryl Hitchcock, LED, and I know nothing.
Don't believe me.
Yeah, I know.
I'm Heather Dillard, Ed Leadership, and I've used it just a little bit, but I want to get more proficient so that I can use it more for my students to teach them how to.
I'm Becky Alexander, and I'm from the Department of Elementary and Special Ed, and I'm here to learn.
I'm Joan Goulwart. I have not used Nearpod, but I'm excited to learn a new app.
I'm Donald Sneed. I always follow along with the crowd.
Outstanding. Well, I'm glad you followed in this way. So anyway, welcome everyone again. If you didn't know each other, I didn't know necessarily everyone that walked in the room, so I'm glad to meet you. I'm excited you guys are here and hope that, again, you walk away today with not just an idea of something that maybe is interesting, but you walk away with something you can use immediately. That's one of the goals that I'm going to have from this, that it's not just a how it might work, but let's actually put it to work in your setting right away. So anyway, following the standard old gradual release model, I'll kind of walk you through that there. Then we'll kind of do a couple pieces together, and then we're going to turn it over to you. And I really want to allocate a lot of the chunk of time today just for you to work on things and just get Q&A one-on-one with me if you want to, or just play with it. Because with any technology tool, often the most powerful learning experience you can have is just getting in there and playing with it, which of course is ugly and trouble and fun. But one of the great things about technology with that is that it gives immediate feedback when there's errors, and so you get this quick corrective feedback that actually helps you. So hopefully that playtime will work out productively, and you'll walk away at the end of the session with something you could use tomorrow, maybe tonight, depending on what things go. So anyway, that's the overview, and then we'll of course have time for Q&A throughout. But We'll put that obviously at the end too, just opening up where we're at. So with that said, I've kind of been running through some of this, just streaming it from my device here, and I want to now get you guys involved from this so you can see it firsthand. Now, one of the features I like of Nearpod is it's extremely user-friendly in that you can run it off your phone, you can run it off an iPad, you can run it off the web. And so depending on what device you're using right now, there's a different way you're going to get it. So if you're on iPhone, and I abandoned iPhone for a long time ago, so I know it's actually called the App Store. I put iTunes Store because I wasn't thinking very clearly. But if you've got an iPhone or an iPad, go to your App Store and go look for Nearpod, Nearpod. Pop up something like that. It's a free app. You can pay to get the big version. I'm cheap. I've never done it, and I found it pretty efficient anyway. I'll highlight some of the differences, and again, with the fact that I have not paid for the big version, I can't tell you what all those things do, but a lot of the ones that were there, they let you play with before, like in a beta system. So I've played with some of them anyway, so I can give you a glimpse of what other tools are, and then some I can't. But either way, it's free. You have to pay if you want to have a subscriber for extra things, but you don't need them for most. So App Store, Nearpod. If you've got a Android device like I do, your Play Store, Nearpod, and of course if you're on a computer, just www.nearpod.com. You do not need to sign up for an account right now, but if you're running a device, it probably will make you do so. It's free, so it won't count you, and I've never gotten any spam or any of that garbage from them. So, with that said,
If I have an account, should I log out and not be?
Won't matter. Yep. Good question. Yep. And so for those of you who do have an account, it'll look different when you log in. That's about it, but it doesn't have any features that are going to impact it. So on that screen, and I'll pull up what it'll look like so you can see on this here. I'll open up a tab and see what you see as well. And I'm going to give you a pin, and you're all going to join my show. And then you'll be able to hop in here. So you'll get somewhere on this screen. Up top there says enter code. There'll be something right there. And you're going to click there. Or you might have something that looks like, where's my home account here? So it could look like that, or it could look like, and I'll sign with my other account. I've got several. As with any good of these things there, it could also go like this. And so you've got, it'll either look this way or the way it was before. If it's like this, you just click on where it says join, and it'll give you that pin. Otherwise, you look at the top where it says code, and I'll give you the code right now. When you start a live session, it'll immediately tell you a code. And again, my screen looks a little tiny different than yours, but not much. And in case you have people that come in late, your code's always up in the top left, so you don't need to write it down and record it. So for you all, it is Q as in Queen, R as in right, V as in victory, W as in win, we'll stick with that theme, and J as in Jason or something. So QRVWJ. So type in that pin, and if it needs a repeat, let me know. I'll sign in here as well. So we've got this. Actually, I'm already signed in, so I'll sign out. All right. And if anyone's running into issues, let me know. I just want to get everyone set up for it. You can open other tabs, by the way. There's not an issue for that. So once you get in and grab me, we'll get people logged in here for it. It'll take a minute for those. That's okay. So you're going to go to this home page. So find that home, and you're going to go to push open. It wants to open it in the app because on all of our iPads, we've already installed it. So go ahead and say open. That's all right. If you're using one of the provided iPads, we've already had them install the app, so it's going to want to run it off that app. And that should be easy enough. Just say OK when it gives you that prompt. Okay. Another good thing for just kind of noting that if you were like in a school setting, so I know a lot of us work with pre-service teachers, training teachers to use these things. One of the things that you'd want to think about is the troubleshooting stuff of Wi-Fi access issues. So for instance, when we put these together, and I'll talk a little about it later on, but once you open the app, it will not let you function until you have an iTunes account logged in. And so we've got 23 apps all to the College of Ed. None of them are signed in with an account because there's not 23 different users. It's MTSU. So Stephen, our tech guy, had to find a workaround for that. Of course, you could have students sign in, but then the problem is then they're signed into this device, and the devices. So it's one of those layers where you, at a school site, it'd be good to make sure that you talked about that with your tech person first and said, is this going to be an issue? And it should stream just fine off the web too. You just have to bypass it, which is where the troubleshooting comes in. So. All right, so once you get in there, one of the first things I want to highlight right away, when you guys got in, you notice you got to give me your name. You could have made it anything. So if you saw me here earlier, it was Frodo Baggins, because I always pick something from Lord of the Rings. But the key point there is Your students, if you want good data, tell them put your name. So it'd be one thing that's useful for you to identify. They can put whatever they want. Of course, you could also make it very simple. You're only getting credit if your name's on there. So there's a very easy workaround to that, but nonetheless, it's something to note. If you don't tell them that, they'll put whatever they want, and then you'll be looking through and saying, huh, I didn't know I had a Rupert and a Paddington. Cool. I guess I flew to Britain today. So anyway, is everyone logged in? Good to go. All right, so on your screens now, when I slide, your slideshow should move with it. And so where it's helpful with that is not necessarily just the presentation is there, but I've embedded questions throughout this. And that's where the real power of Nearpod comes into play, and that you can use questions, embed them in there, and I'll show you how that looks in a live session in a moment. So we're all in there. We'll get a chance to see it from the teacher side and the student side as of now. So we'll start off right away with the question. And so on your screen now, it should pop up, and you'll have a quick little response. It's just a poll question, just to kind of get things started here on technology and your general comfortability with it. So just click a button and pop it in, and I wanted to show you what it looks like. So you submit yours. Your screen should look like mine up at the top there once you've submitted it. And again, what I'll do is I go throughout here. I'm going to show you some of the things I'm going to see, so you can see that. On my screen, it looks different. I got all the students and where their responses are, and if I decide, ooh, this is interesting, I really want to share this out with the team, I push a button, and now on your screens in a moment, that should pop up. So you immediately get this, and I can use that to then talk about conversation. So if I was going to, maybe I was pulling student interest in my class, and I wanted to say, what topic do we want to dive into? Just based upon that, I could pop this up and say, looks like we're going into this one here. So overall, we're pretty comfortable as a group here. Maybe that's why you decided to come and you weren't scared to show up for the first one. But either way, for our purposes here, again, just this nice little sample way you could do this. This is one of the types of questions you can embed in there, just simple poll questions. And again, I can share it, unshare it. Later on, there's different ones where I can share individual responses. I've pulled it back right now. So again, hopefully that interactive piece is what I want to have from it there that I think is so useful. Yeah, fire away.
Question. So you have to have a separate device to run this, not the one here, right?
Yep, you're running it on something. Now, I could run it back there, and I don't need to have this screen. I just put this up here because, well, I know you all have it there, but I'm putting it up here for our video, I guess. It's easy to say. So you need one to run it. You could run it from this. You could run it from a computer. You can't run it from this. Okay. This is a receiving thing only. So that is maybe another useful kind of tab there. Your phones are good for receiving. So the good news is, by and large, we don't have a huge shortage of students in college that don't have a phone of some point. So they can all have access to it whether they have any device at all.
Okay, so I guess because I'm asking because when I did my lesson, I was logged on, but you see how the screen you just showed them, they can see all of that up here on the screen, so I'm trying to figure out how they can't see that part.
So if that's the only one you'd have, well, I guess there's several different ways. One, you'd say, is there a second device? So each classroom's built with one. Do you have a laptop? I'd use my laptop and run it, and I'd log in as a student up there. Or I would just say, I'm shutting this off. You all are on. It's in front of you. You don't need to see it up here. It's right in front of you. Maybe that would keep them more involved. Although it's pretty easy to go on your tabs and look up ESPN and check my fantasy team and all those fun things you're dealing with. So again, that's one of the layers to think about. Good question. Other kind of questions, thoughts?
So it doesn't lock up your device entirely?
No. The only thing it does is that page will keep you where I am. So that's a very good question. That's one of the things I'll highlight later. It's one of the shortfalls for it. And so for example, here, I'm staying with up here. We're all students there. In my classes, you typically will find me at the back wandering this way. And students think we're dumb and we don't know what tabs are, but we could say, Jimmy, I don't need you to check your fantasy team, close it out. So anyway, because I control it from wherever I am in the classroom.
You can also see, like if you go to the page where it shows everybody's name, their name will come up in red, and that's how you know they're not on here.
Yeah. And so on what she's talking about is on my screen here, it shows all the students logged in. So let me go back so you can see it here. In the bottom left, it shows the little figures and the number of people who are logged in as at the moment. And they're all green right now, so that's a good sign. You guys aren't tabbing out on me too much. We'll be keeping close eyes on that. And I'll be reporting it so it's saved in perpetuity. No, okay. So, all right. So again, just kind of that first one, just kind of getting a glimpse here. Most of us, by and large, are pretty comfortable using technology, which is good because any technology thing involves a little bit of uncomfortability by its design. So anyway, now I'm going to kind of shift into just kind of a little more of information about it and how you can use it, and then we'll walk through the different steps. So one of the things I just kind of pulled just a couple images to kind of share it. So what it might look like in a classroom, again, this is really ideal in a case where you can put devices in the hands of students because you want a lot of data. And if you're asking students questions in front of a class, You've always got the kids that are ready to answer, and they're usually going to get it right, and that usually gives you garbage information as to where the most of the class is. I can cold call people, and that might be better, but it's still kind of random, and it's ad hoc. In this case there, the idea is here I can get feedback from everybody right away. If they don't respond, I know who didn't respond, at least if they gave me their name. And again, I'm going to hold them to that. But the long story short, you can put it in their hands and you can use that data to inform what you do in the moment, rather than saying, wow, at the end of the unit, they didn't get anything. They got all my answers right when I asked them in class. Well, no duh, you call on the guys with their hands up or the gal, So anyway, it's put it in their hands. Now again, there's all sorts of layers that come with that. So what does it look like in creation mode? And a little later on, you guys are going to be creating stuff and playing with that so you get a chance to see it. But basically, it's just a slideshow. And again, one of the reasons I really like it, which I'll showcase in a moment here, is you do not have to create your slideshows on here. I create everything on PowerPoint because I'm familiar with it, drag and drop, and I'm done. The only thing I have to do is add questions. And so we'll show that in a minute so you can see how easy that is. But you can create them right on there. So if you want to. Anyway, so again, as I've highlighted, it's free, except if you want to pay, there's more stuff available. You're limited in your size. I've got like 4 accounts, so find a way around that. You can figure out what you want to do. And you delete old ones too, so you can do all that. But nonetheless, it's free, and it gets, as far as I'm concerned, everything you need to out of the free one pretty well. Yeah.
One thing I can't figure out how to make it do you know how to make it screen reader accessible so that they can use a screen reader with it?
That is a great question, and I have no clue. I don't know, but shoot me an email of that, and I can follow up. So I did one of the articles I published a few years back, looked at this. It was in a conference paper. But Nearpod liked it because they're like, ooh, we can use this to advertise. And so they shot me an email and asked me to write an article for them. But if that person's still in charge, I can shoot them an email. Maybe they'll give me an answer for you. So I don't know, but maybe I can get it for you. Good question. So anyway, again, the whole point that I think is useful for this, why I can enhance your presentations, is instead of just using the typical approach of getting a general feel of the class, I can get a whole picture feel. I can use that aggregate feel to determine where I'm going to go. And again, I'll highlight later why I think that looks like in a best case scenario. So I'm going to run through basically these 4 steps, and so this is just an image you could find online, but it walks through basically the 4 steps that are involved. For creation, I'm going to walk through each of those and show some examples. And again, if you want to play along and do it on the side there, that's great. I will give you at least 45 minutes, maybe more, just to play with it at the end too. So it won't be a lot of me talking time. But step 1, creation. You got to create something. And as I said, the thing to me, the highlight for it is it's extremely easy. So I'm going to show you what it looks like real quickly. And so as I've said, you do not have to build the show in there. You can. If I want to create one, I just go on my home page here, and there's the option for create. I'm going to click that. And as soon as our lightning fast internet connection gets going here, you'll see what the screen looks like, and there's a variety of options you can pick from. I'm going to open up my folder while that's working. Now, I didn't think about what slideshow I want to pick, so we'll just pick a random one here. Nope. Reload. There we go. Okay, so this is what your create page is going to look like, and you can see the options add slide. I'll just show you this real quick. I'll show it a little bit later on too. But when I click on this, it gives you the options for what you want to do. This is their new thing they're pitching, and I'm going to play with it later on, so you'll get to see it. But you've got options of add content, add web content you got to pay for. So I don't know really how to function that one. And add activity. Activity is where you get your questions. So all the questions, sorts of things you'd want to have students do to get data from them are activities. And content would be if you want to add like content slides. I'm not worried about that right now because we'll go to that later. Instead, what I'd rather do is what it says right here, drag and drop. So I'll just kind of grab one here. We'll just get, I don't know which one this is. So all I do is click and drag my file over. Once the screen pops up with this blue tab, you can't see how beautiful it looks on there. It'll be happy to receive it. But once that comes up, it means it's got it. I let go, and it'll take a minute to upload. Here's my check, and it'll push OK. There's probably too many slides on this one since it's a whole weekend session. But once it processes, all those things will immediately be populated into here. And so again, that was my creation time. Then all I have to do is figure out where are those questions that I want to ask and embed them in the presentation. And again, to me, I think there's a secondary question that follows up with that, which I'll get to later. But here was our creation time, and it should go further than that, but it's taking a minute. So anyway, the slides are popped up. You can see how that works right away. So creation, extremely easy. And as I said, you can create it right on there if you wanted to. I can't say I've done it because I like PowerPoint. I'm perfectly happy using it. It can actually take PDFs as well as PowerPoints. So if you've got PowerPoints saved as PDFs, drag and drop, that's fine. I've not used the Keynote.
I use Google Drive.
Okay. Google Drive should, yep, because it has connections to all those links. That should be easy enough there. Good. But again, the idea for me, as far as I'm concerned, I like things that don't make life harder. I don't need to make a separate presentation. I take the presentation I've got, drag and drop. I'm ready to go. So that to me is one of the big highlights for this, to make it extremely simple for creating those features. There's also some cool things you can add to it that make it better than your typical presentation too, which I'll highlight as well there content-wise. But step 2 then is sharing. And so as we're doing right here, I'm sharing with all of you, and you can see how that goes in there. All I need to do is push live session. So let's show you what that looks like again. Just highlight it. So we'll go back to my other page here. You can see what it would look like. And so we'll go back to my library. I went to my library instead of home, which if I would have gone to home, if I would put my library was one of the tabs, I'll just pick one of these. And if I want to do a live session, you just click live lesson. And so once I hover it over it, it gives me the options. Student paced sounds to me really cool, and I wanted to do it, but it costs the money. So to me, this was like when I taught online classes, I thought, oh, this is a cool thing I would take advantage of. Because I'm cheap, I haven't bought it yet. But maybe someday if I do, I would try that. The student paced one, you could just set up and they could go and do it wherever you wanted. So that'd be cool. If you were doing an asynchronous class, but you said, hey, log in between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, I could activate it, but the problem is I've got to change the slides. And so it's student paced would be a pretty neat feature, but I've never played with it. So anyway, but once you click live lesson, what it'll do is it will give you a PIN number, just like this. And then there's my code. And so you could all join in that one. Please don't, because we're not using that one. But again, that's all there is to it. And so all I have to do is share this. You notice I can share it through email, through social things. So I could tweet it out if I want random people joining in. Great. You could give them a link, or you could just say it out loud. And of course, it has these links with Google Classroom. They're trying to sync up with a lot of the popular things used in the K-12 schools like Google Classroom. So we're going to be leaving this one. But you can see from the sharing, pretty darn easy to do as well. Again, once you click it, all I got to do is remember that 5-letter code. And actually, I don't have to remember it because, again, it shows me on my slideshow view. If I'm the host, it's always in the top left of my screen. So you forget, Johnny walks in 15 minutes late and he's going in there. What was that pin? Does I have to remember? No, you don't. It's right there. So again, it keeps it simple. And again, with the other features, it can stream on any smart device. You need a device, you need Wi-Fi, and then you need this PIN code. With those 3 things, it'll function. So that's really all the features for that. So step 2, sharing. Easy also. Another reason why I like it. Step 3 is interact with the students, get some engagement. So again, I've already built in one question here, and as we move throughout, I'm going to showcase each of the different types of questions. So we'll get one of those in a little bit here, but just to kind of highlight what the different types look like, there's these open-ended questions. There are poll questions. Poll question is what I did the first time. An open-ended question will be a written response thing, and again, on those, I'll get the written responses of all the students, and just like that ones, I can choose to share individual ones. And so again, that's kind of cool for stimulating discussion. Instead of having just one person share it, I got my list of 20 students that give me their feedback, and then I say, ooh, this is the one I want to dive into, share it, it pops up on all your screens. And then that can be a way we can talk about it. Of course, I can just read it off too, but different ways you can use that to make it not me, teacher-centered, but this is something shared by the class. So it gets that, kind of shifts that role of leadership a little bit, of me as facilitator rather than just leader. So open-ended questions, poll questions, again, you saw what that looked like. The other ones they are called quizzes. They're multiple choice, true, false. You can make them anywhere from 2 to, I've never gone longer than 5, so I don't know how many options you can give, but you can give a variety. And on those ones, the difference is you mark one as right, obviously. So you've got these things you're checking for something that's right, but you'll get the exact same table, immediate aggregate data, and it'll show which ones got it right, which ones got it wrong. So you have an individual score, you got an aggregate score, and then you can figure out what you're going to want to do with that, which again, I'll give a pitch for how I would take about that later. Draw it. I found I like this in particular. If you wanted to have them kind of draw a visual depiction of something they learned. And so we were talking about some sort of theoretical construct. At the end, this is kind of a weird thing. So I said, just sketch me a little picture. With their little mouse, they just sketch a little picture. I get all those images. And then I said, wow, this is a really cool one. I share it out. And so again, a really cool way that you can get them all involved thinking visually. I'm a garbage drawer, and so later on when I do my example, you'll see how bad mine would be. I'll probably be sharing someone besides mine. But nonetheless, another cool feature you could leverage depending on what you were looking at. So anyway, what that would look like. And this Collaborate is something that I've never used. It's new. It's probably in beta mode, so maybe it'll go to the pay version later. I don't know. But for right now, we'll play with it the first time that I'll actually use it in a live session with you all in a little bit here. So we'll see what that looks like. From what I understand, it's a lot like an app called Flipgrid, where basically you guys will post stuff up, and instead of being videos, they'll be your text, but they'll all pop up in a big live discussion forum, and you can interact with one another. So if I'm in a class like this, I'm probably gonna make people talk this way, but you could do that. So it looks kind of cool. We'll play with it and see what you all think as well. So that's the interaction opportunities. There are a lot of others that look pretty cool too, but again, those in the pay version. So I'll highlight some of those that I'm familiar with and a lot of ones that I'm not, but them things that are there. So interacting. Step 4 then is monitor and measure. And so again, this is for me the assessment for learning. And so instead of just using these questions to kind of figure out where we want to go next, we're figuring out where we want to go next, not next lesson, but next moment, moment to moment, interactive, right away feedback. And so here's kind of my pitch of what I think is once you create that presentation and you embed those questions, the next thing I would think about is if they get this question overwhelmingly right, what's my next step? And if they get it wrong, what's my next step? And add those slides at the end. Maybe they're never, maybe you don't even use, so at the end of your slideshow, I tack on 10 to 15 extra slides of just small remediation or enrichment. Everyone knocks it out of the park on my first one. I don't need to go next slide. On the bottom of my screen, I can just click right here, scroll to the end, pick the one I want. So we struggle on this one. We don't get it overwhelming. I say, we need to go back and revisit that. I got a follow-up slide already ready for that. I don't need to worry about next class. I just pick it, pop it up, and we're going to look at that right now. So we're going to go back and revisit it. Or you knocked it out of the park. I don't need to waste my time with the next slide, which is just building on that. I'm going to do it at the next level. So now I can look at that enrichment thing. So to me, that's the real power for it there. If you add in these extra things, so that the moment that you have that data, your question is, I'm not just following the path I planned, but I'm following the path that makes sense given my context. And so again, to me, that's really the powerful thing of how you can make an assessment for learning tool. That does take a little more time because, of course, it does require you add extra slides. I wouldn't do them in Nearpod. I'd do them on PowerPoint and just throw them at the end of my slideshow. And if I don't get to them, I don't get to them, but they're there. And if I have the opportunity, I'm going to take it. So anyway, that's the way that I like it. And again, you've already seen one showcase of that. So I'd like to, if there's any questions just generally, fire them away now. Otherwise, I'll show a couple more of what these activities look like.
Let's say I have a student that's absent. How can I make this accessible to them to see after class?
The show itself, because it's a PowerPoint, you could share that. Now, could they get the questions? No, unless you do the pay version. So because that's where that student-paced version to me would be really interesting, and I'd really like it. But as far as I can imagine, you can't do it because it needs to be a live session, which means I need to slide the slides. You can't change your slides there. You would be able to if it was a student-paced, but so don't have a great answer for it, except maybe you just make a podcast yourself and say, go watch the podcast. I don't know. So, yeah.
Is editing just a matter of deleting and if you've done it on your own PowerPoint, you can make the edits there and then reload or?
Yes, and so if you just add a few extra slides, you could just add in those few extra slides from it. So you open up I'd probably delete the whole thing, do it. I think you can add actually slide by slide, but I don't want to. Either way, the answer is yes. All you do is you just drag and drop the new file. Erase the old ones, or drag and drop a new one. You could create a brand new slideshow. You can keep the questions as they are, and drop the new ones, and then delete the things. So you saw it takes about 10 seconds or so to process the info, and then you'd figure out which slides you wanted to keep, add, etc. So pretty straightforward. Typically what I do is I make a new show and dump the old one because you're limited to like 20 megabytes, 20 per slideshow. I forget what the total is that you can have on there, but each slideshow can only have 20 megabytes. That limits the videos, which is one of the things you can add on there. It's kind of cool, but either way. So anyway, does that answer a question for it? Okay. Other questions or quick thoughts that are coming to people's minds at this point?
When a lot of times I do PowerPoints, I've got like on one slide things just pop up occasionally, you know. So does it pop up that way, or is the whole thing there?
Whole slide will come in, and so it will see each one as a JPEG, basically, is what it kind of turns it into. So if you want to do that, what you'd need to do is make slides of those, and so you'd have slide number 1 would have the first line, slide 2 have the second line. So that would be a limitation. If you've got slideshows with pre-built-in sequencing, that's not going to come through. Good question. Yeah. Good question. All right. Well, then let's get into some Q&A so you can see how some of these things work. So I listed there were 3 things or several things that you needed to have to make this function. So here's your quick little quiz question. So everyone can take a response here. We'll see what Frodo will put his answer back here. Pop a response. Frodo is going to miss. Oh, man. All right. And so again, on my screen there, in real time, I'm seeing who's responding, whether they're right or wrong. So far, only one poor student, Frodo, has got it wrong. The rest of you are surviving. So if I wanted to share that, it doesn't show that Frodo is the wrong student. And so again, here, I'll just click share out there. Just shows correct and incorrect. So again, it doesn't pin anyone down and everyone looks over and says, oh gosh, he got it wrong again. No, I can still use that and share that if I want to, or if I don't need to share it, because that's pretty good data. It looks like we've got it pretty well, especially since I know that I'm the one that deliberately answered it wrong. I'd feel pretty comfortable saying, all right, we got that. Everyone knows the little things they need. So there's your quiz questions. Again, very similar to the poll questions you have. So here is the open-ended response, and so it just pops up like this. Again, you can see on your screen what it looks like. Here's your question. Just take a moment and pop in anything you're thinking of at this point. I know I asked my question a minute ago, but you could just pop in some items here. We'll go with that. What's a good question here? I have all the answers because I'm the host.
What do I write?
Oh, it says you've submitted. The thank you came up because it thinks you submitted your answer. So you wrote internet. Now, can you go back? I don't think that you can. That's out of your hands. So Donald just encountered something there where he accidentally clicked enter or submit, something to that effect there. So his question got blocked off. We don't see a way he can go back and do that. But on my screen, again, just like other ones there, what I see is a listing of all the students and what their questions are. And so if I say, ooh, there's one that I want to share out. This one just came up a minute ago. Boom. And so here's one again. I can share out that. And again, on all your screens, it should pop up as well. So again, this, to me, that's the thing about it. I can use that. You're SOL, I guess is the best answer I give in this case here. You're out of luck. Sorry, Donald. No, again, but so yeah, I'm not certain how to do that. As far as I know, you don't. And just looking at Donald's, I didn't see any workaround. Did you? Yeah, so there's our best working answer, and it's just that, is a working answer. But again, I could shoot that out to the group and then say, all right, I want you to process this for a minute before just shouting at answers. Give everyone that think time that you want to, rather than just popping it up. So again, there's different ways, to me, I think are useful for it. And again, all this gets stored. At the end, I can spit out a report, and it stores all these things. So I can see what are the questions people are asking time and time again with this topic. And then that becomes something I can maybe inform. They're always asking about this. Clearly, I'm not doing my job in that regard, or they're interested in it, and I hadn't thought about it. So maybe I need to consider that. So again, a variety of ways in which you could use that. So just highlighting a few more kind of cool features. I just mentioned the reports. So at the end of the slideshow, and it'll just kind of store it in there, as far as I can tell, in perpetuity until you run out of storage. Basically, again, I've got several different accounts, but whenever I opened it up in 2013, I've still got some reports from there. So any live session you do, it must store until you run out of stuff, you have too much things on there, and I imagine at that point it'll be telling me I haven't even run into that yet. So I've got quite a few. I also delete them when I don't use them anymore. Anyway, reports at the end look like this. And so this front screen, you can't read it very well. It's not on that, but in a moment you'll be able to run your own. You can see what this looks like. But it shows you, first off, just participation. So how many students logged in and completed. So they were there the whole time from that. So that kind of keeps you that participation account. Then it goes down and you can click on these different things. That's the summary. Who is involved, who is there. So you've got this listing. And again, if I wanted to have my whatever participation grade for the class there, part of what it is, they're involved with these things, They weren't logged in, they weren't there. So I've got that recorded from that. But you click on these other ones. If I have a quiz question or poll question, open-ended, draw it, it'll have all those and it stores the data for me. So again, it's there. I can use it later and use it to decide what to do next, whether it be for next class or whether it be for next semester when I'm delivering this class again. And they overwhelmingly got this one right, but we'll pretend it was wrong. That's something I need to revisit. So again, that's to me the nice feature. This report's available to you as long as you want to access it, and I'll show you how to get that in a little bit. Very, very easy as well. You just go to reports. That's pretty much all there comes to it. And again, it'll store all those written responses. So again, all that stuff becomes stored that you can go back and tap into later on as your heart desires. Or it doesn't, because hopefully you're using it in the moment to make the difference for it. But of course, it's always good to go back and reflect on it later. So what about challenges? As I mentioned here, I love technology. I'm also a skeptic of it because sometimes people say, something shiny new, I want to do it. And shiny and new isn't always better. And I found out the hard way because a lot of times I've tried something and it flopped big time. And that's okay. I'm all for that. That's a learning experience. So here's some highlights I want to mention right away of challenges you might encounter with that. So the first one right away to note is that anytime you play with technology, I guarantee distraction is increased. And so that is an issue. So again, as I mentioned, I'd be at the back of the room, so I've got my eyes on their monitors. And so I can just kind of take a quick glance up what they're at. And again, that's one of the things I like about it. With a clicker, it's cool too, but I don't need to be anywhere near my thing. I'm going to control it with my device. That's why I use my iPad, because I can walk around with it easily. You could do it with your laptop, a little more clunky to walk around with, but you could. And as far as I knew, you cannot run a show from this, but you can stream a show from it. So for me, it's the iPad, but you could do either of those. And keep that to your mind. Yeah, fire away.
Can I use a
Clicker
to run it?
I don't know. I've never tried a clicker with it because I'm running it through this. My suspicion is no, because I think it'd be too much. It's communicating to the computer, and the computer was going to try. I don't think there's that. I don't think it'll speak to that. I don't know. But my answer would be I doubt it. So anyway, other questions or thoughts on that one? So Wi-Fi issues, again, it's a real issue when you're on schools. K-12 schools don't nearly have as powerful networks as us, or they're really locked down, and that gets some limitations. And so just like any technology thing, you'd better do a test run of it before you implement it. And so the students should know that too, because they shouldn't be scared of doing it, but at the same time, if you don't ever test run it, it's going to flop in your face, almost guaranteed, because there are a lot of extra layers in the K-12 schools especially, where they're locking down a lot of secure things that we don't worry about in higher ed, because our students are angels, I guess, or maybe they're of age, so it doesn't matter. But there's a lot of things that we aren't worried about. They are in the K-12 system. And again, so having done, back in South Dakota when I was working there, it was a technology-focused university. We'd go to schools all the time, and this was probably the #1 hurdle, just dealing with the different security measures of each school. So basically, the teacher would probably want to make sure they connect with that tech person and say, I just want to make sure this is going to work easily. If it's not going to work easily, it's a waste of your time. You're just adding a hurdle, not worth doing. Again, by and large, I've found that you can be overcome very easily, but that's something you would anticipate up front there. And of course, if Wi-Fi shuts down, I can't send you anything anyway at this point. The good news for me then is, all it was a PowerPoint. I'll just run the regular one, and I'll have to ask the questions orally. So I got to fall back on my default, what I used to do. Not a big deal. But nonetheless, that's another issue for that. And so, as we noticed earlier, while I control your screen, I don't control your screen, right? I mean, you can change the tab anytime you want. And so that's a feature just to keep in mind. And again, to me, that's why I've got my eyes on the screens, because I'm interested to make sure they're staying with me and involved for it. And it's not just a matter of being on that device, because on the device, they could be doing lots of things. Perhaps maybe some of you are checking emails. I don't know. I probably would be. I'm a compulsive multitasker, which we know doesn't work well. So it's a battle. So deal with that, plan for it. Again, I mentioned this at the front there, but students, they can put whatever name they want, so tell them up front, don't just give me a fun name, give me your name, you're getting credit. Make that clear, that's part of the policy. Devices, I already mentioned, distracting, but one of the things I highlighted for it there is, just like anything in a classroom, using them consistently makes a huge difference. The first time you go through this, you'll eat up 5 minutes just kind of going through the process of making sure everyone can find it, get the pin in, look at it. The next time, that's shaved down to 2 minutes. Then it becomes much more efficient. And of course, you'll gain your own procedures, but you'd want to think about, I would encourage you, for working with pre-service teachers in particular, identify what those routines are going to be up front there, establish them from the first moment you do it. Because obviously we know an efficient classroom is a lot easier to manage, and you're adding an extra layer of management with the device. I think it works to our advantage. That's why I've stuck with this one. And at the same time, we got to think about some of those items. I already mentioned this last one as well, but beyond just the security measures, if you're using a cart, so again, the cart of iPads we've got back here, I worked with Stephen, our IT person here, and he had turnaround time and really, really fast. He was able to fix it. But when we first installed Nearpod, so on all the devices back there, Nearpod's on all of them, it would not let you do anything until you were signed into the iTunes store on the device. We didn't want to do that. And so he found a workaround very easily, and he said, I don't want to talk to you about what the steps were because it's too techy. And I said, that's fine with me. You got it working, cool. So it was very easy for him to do at the same time. If you were just going to roll this out and you said, hey, my tech person, I'm going to have this do it there, and they installed the apps, that may not be the last step you need to do. So again, that's why that test run is so helpful. And again, I could run a test run, just me and my computer in my classroom. Or if I was using a class set of iPads, I'd borrow one of them in my building, bring it in, and test run it where I deliver it to that iPad just to make sure it's functioning. And you don't need a whole class. If it works on one device, you're good. It's going to function on the others unless they've got a technical issue on their device like Wi-Fi. They're not connecting. So those are some of the challenges, and again, I think it's important to think about when you talk about technology because you're going to encounter them. And rule number one of technology is troubleshooting 101. Be comfortable with the fact that there's going to run into issues, and that's okay. We're all pretty comfortable with technology, so I think you probably are all aware of that. Anyway, that's kind of me highlighting some of the challenges I've encountered with this app in particular. And as I said, having shared all those, this is the one I've stuck with probably longest of all the apps I've used, so I think it's still worth it. Any other questions, thoughts, or comments at this point? I got a few more, and then we're going to dive into playtime. So, on this, here's my attempt at our Collaborate. So, I've not ever used this until now. It's our first time. This is their new thing they've got available. So, one of the other options you can do is called Collaborate. And so, on my screen, the first thing that comes up is, do I want to make sure I'm going to approve things? So, making sure that Heather doesn't say, I hate Nancy. I'll say, nope, denied. But no. So, you can set that up. I'm going to just take the risk and say, no, I'm good. We're going to post things, and if it says Crambule's hideous, ugly, or horrible, oh well, it pops up on my screen, and we're all going to see it. That's okay. We'll talk about it. No, just kidding. So on your screens now, what you guys can do, you should be able to have at the bottom of it, it should say share your thoughts or images, and I like the images thing. So if you see that little picture to the right of where it says share your images, if you click it, it'll give you an immediate search, and it'll search Google for you right away and pop that up. So if I was thinking, I don't know. I'm thinking, this is crazy. I'll just search it up and see what pops up on mine. So you could find images, share those. You could write your own responses. Arnie popped up. That was tempting, but I better go away from that one. Okay. Okay. And so you can see some things popping up, and on your screens it should be popping up right away too. So again, you could interact with one another. Again, when I saw this and kind of played with it for 5 seconds this morning before doing it with a live group there, my initial thought was, I'm probably going to have us collaborate face-to-face, but cool, kind of neat, and in particular I like the images. So if we were kind of having people capture images for maybe a lesson they were thinking of doing, so working with pre-service teachers, and they're all social studies, and we said, all right, go grab some images that you would use if we're doing this study on American Revolution. They pop a bunch of them. They have access to all these later. They can capture a screenshot, edit them, whatever. So ways you could do that. Again, my initial thought is I'm probably going to turn to your neighbor. Let's get working face to face. But kind of a cool thing. So this is one of those new ones. And again, who knows? Maybe it'll turn into a pay version later. I don't know. As of now, it's available on the free one. That's why we're using it. So anyway, on your screen, you can see that. And on mine, it's got an option where I can then save this and share out my board. So that's kind of cool if I wanted to share it out. Well, I encountered it earlier and I'm running away from it now, but we'll find a little later on what it would look like. So I'll see if I can't find that in a little while. But earlier when I was just playing with it there, I can save this board and I could share it via Twitter. So if I thought, wow, this board that my people were created was really cool, I could share it on the social media. I could share it with a link. I could share it with my email if I wanted to store that. Of course, it'll be recorded in your reports as well. So that's that Collaborate board. Kind of cool. Looks like we had some positive commentaries. That's great. So it's a good thing I didn't put my lockdown on there. We were safe. So wrapping up, I'm just going to want to show back a few of these things. So on that home page, so if you were on a computer or this device, when you come in there, you're going to see something that looks like this. And so these are your different tabs that you've got to work from. So that's our fast overview of revisiting some of these things. My library is going to show all your saved presentations. So anything you create, it's going to be saved there, including ones that are in progress. And so if you don't save it, but it's edited, it saves there as a draft version until you save it, you can't have a live session of it. That's about it, but it actually stores it in there anyway until then. Explore is kind of cool for, again, if you were, again, working with pre-service teachers. So we did this, we'd have some students looking, and there's thousands of lessons people put up online. A lot of them are garbage, a lot of them are good. And I'm always a fan of modifying and tweaking everything for my own purposes, not just taking what's out there, but in this case you can download and take what's out there and it's on your library, and then I could edit it. There's also ones you can pay for, so the big shots make these amazing, beautiful ones. And sometimes they'll have a free week where you can go get some of those things for free. I've borrowed some in the past I thought were pretty darn cool. I was impressed. They spent a lot more time than I spend building presentations apparently. Really impressive. So Explore is cool. A lot of them are free, some of them cost money, and again, sometimes there's free week where you can go download some of those free ones or options that are out there. Join is if you want to join a session, so you all did that. Create, we showed that there where you're going to go to create the account there, and then reports. And so that bottom one is where I go to report, and it stores all my last prior sessions. I could dive in and get the report, and it'll show those different slides like I shared earlier, just to kind of
And that's by
showcase.
student, right? We can see by
It'll be by student and aggregate. Yep. So both those things are there. And again, to me, that's some of the power for it. So there's that. I already mentioned this orally, so I'll just reiterate it. But again, take a PowerPoint you're already ready to do, plug it in, add a few extra of those slides so you can use those questions not just to get data about what they did get or didn't get, but that I can actually choose where am I going to go from here. So those extra slides to me are really meaningful. Because then I could say, all right, based upon our answer to this, we should remediate. We need to go back and revisit this one. I'm not just charging ahead in my slides.
And you add those slides while it's in.
I would add them before I ever teach it. And so the first time I'm doing them, it may not be easy to do because I'm rolling through it there. But as I go through and I find we're running into trouble with this one there, I'm going to go add. That's a question I want to
But
ask.
you don't add it in PowerPoint outside and then redrop it. You can add it.
You could do either one. I would add it in PowerPoint outside because I like everything to look my beautiful formatting. And it formats it their own way on Nearpod. So, but either one would be just fine. And there's a couple of things you could do. I mean, you could have, if you just have like YouTube video clips. So this gets a little tricky because you used to be able to stream a YouTube video right on there for free. That's now pay. However, of course, you can go to keepvid.com and keep the YouTube video as an MP3 or MP4, and I can drag and drop an MP4 right into that. And so you could do that anyway, you just have to do an extra layer of steps. So I'm not teaching about KeepVid today, so I won't. And I won't even mention copyright issues, so it's for purposes of learning. So we'll leave it there. Options you could do about that, but that might be a way where you just have a short little video that you say, we need to go back and revisit this one. Let's go. Doug Reeves has got a good thing on us. So we're going to talk about him with grading. Boom, let's go back to him. Something like that. And then again, just thinking about how you can use this to require them to do it so that it becomes, again, dynamic rather than just a regular old presentation that you always do. It's a presentation that you do based on that group at that time and where they're at. So to me, pretty cool feature. So this is the draw one. And so I didn't have a wonderful conceptual idea that you're going to draw here, but we'll have you guys draw it just so you can see what it would look like on the student end. And so here, my guy will be really excited, I guess. I'm not sure what else I'd be drawing. All right, boom, love it. So once you submit and draw yours, all those things start populating on mine. And again, just like the other ones, I could choose to share one and say, wow, this is a really good visual display of what we just got. And use that as a means to facilitate discussion. So again, it's a cool way you can kind of get people involved in a different avenue. Maybe working with younger students, this might be better, or maybe they're not really good at writing. They can't spell out lots of long sentences, but they could draw a picture of something. I'm probably not going to have them on a PowerPoint anyway, but if I wanted to, I could. Oh, beautiful. Oh, nice, nice, nice. I'm liking it. Okay, so I'm sharing something out because I like this is cool. We've got it out. There we go. So see, I'm sharing this one because I like that. Thinking flowers, pretty. It's cool. That seems like a positive thing. I'm not sure, but again, using this, I could choose to share what I wanted to. And again, depending on what you were doing, this to me would be really cool. I'm less artsy than some, so I couldn't think of a wonderful example for us all. So I'm sorry, but hopefully just kind of looking at it and seeing how, again, pretty easy function to do. On your device, you'd just be sketching with your finger. On this one, you got to use the mouse. And so, again, a pretty cool feature that's in there that you could use if you wanted to. So with that said, I'd like to shut up and just turn it over to you all for the last 30 minutes. I was hoping for 45. We started a bit late and I went a little long, so sorry about that. But any questions, comments, thoughts that you all have right now? Yeah, go ahead.
So for the last 30 minutes, it's playtime. You're obviously welcome to stay or go. But we do have feedback survey that if you, let's see.
On your screen, I put in the instructions there. It didn't work as a hyperlink, so if you copy and paste that in a new tab before you check out, if you'd fill that out, that'd be great to figure out. So it should pop up on your screen. You just kind of copy that link, paste it to a new tab, and then some point at the end of the session, fill that out before you check out, because that'll be helpful for Dr. Calkin moving forward. At the end, if you can't do it, I just did MTSU L and L, Lunch and Learn. So if you type in that when you're done, before you check out of here, if you would please, there's your survey link, and it'll take you right to it. So that'll stay up on that screen for the time being, and grab me. I'd like you to use this time to get a chance to hopefully use the next 30 minutes to walk out of here with something you could use soon. tinyurl.com/MTSUL and L.